Welcome to the Flicks, Picks, and the Nitpicks, and I am your humble host, Nove, 718, man, and I'm here with my co-host, T the Truth. T, say something to the people real quick.
Hello, everyone. T the Truth here.
Alright, so how you been doing so far?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Really enjoying this, as our nostalgia go back and, obviously we all know I'm very passionate about movies, but it sparked another thing in me to actually go back and look at movies that stood out in my brain. And also, this nostalgia trip that we're on has really just showed me why I love movies.
I mean, I like to piggyback off of that and say, actually the same here, because it actually put me, because we gotta do the reviews and all that, it makes me have to not put it off, because I got so much to do, but because of what I do is come here and review movies, it makes me have to carve out the time to do so, which has been just a nostalgia trip for me too, at least doing the throwbacks, especially doing the throwbacks, I should say. Some of these films I haven't seen in years, man, so it was real cool, and it unlocks like memories and shit, like it was real dope. But as always, we gotta let the audience know the flick of the day is, and it was my personal pick, Bloodsport. So just to continue off of the nostalgia trip, this is heavy nostalgia for me growing up, because I was a very big Van Damme film. And Bloodsport, if we could just get into a brief synopsis, is a very classic, I guess you could put it underneath Kung Fu martial arts flick. And it's really loosely based on the story of Frank Dukes. I heard a lot more loose than we may know, but it's not neither here nor there about the specifics, but it is actually based on Frank Dukes' life. And it's basically, it's kind of like an amalgamation of two different types of films in terms of The Man Out of Water, but also a film about honor. And basically it's about an American growing up in Japan. I believe he might have been actually a army family. I'm not exactly sure if they have actually, I don't think they actually specified. But neither here nor there, he goes to school with one of his Asian friends, and basically in a nutshell, he gets bullied. He comes in, actually, not even before the bullying, he actually grows up with them, and he meets his family, and basically in a nutshell, the family feels like once they found him trying to rob the house, and he realized the boy doesn't flinch and he doesn't really show any kind of fear, he felt like he had some sort of warrior spirit, and he decides to speak to his family and train them in the ways of martial arts. But really, he was supposed to be nothing but a sparring partner for his son, who was the person that he was really adamantly trying to train. And when he actually dies later on, and they've grown up over some considerable years as brothers, Frank Dukes finds himself in a position where the father no longer wants to train him anymore, because his line has been cut, and there's no longer a reason to pass on the martial arts that's been within his family. But Frank Dukes implores him, yo, you have so much to learn, you should pass it on to me. And he felt like he was worthy, because not only because he loved his son that he had lost as well as a brother, but also he looked him as a family member, as like a surrogate father. And thus begins his journey in training to fight in the legendary Kumite, an underground street battle or street fight for honor, but basically to showcase you as a all-in-all warrior, even to the death if may be, with very little rules. And we go across the story of Frank Dukes as he becomes into like the army of some sorts. He comes back to honor his family name in terms of the Tanaka family, and fighting the Kumite, and bring honor to his family as in the name of his son. And to be quite honest, it's a fairly simple film for a 90-minute film, directed by Newt Arnold. Not a guy that I knew very much, but it's actually off of a budget of $1.5 million, and it gained $50 million USD worldwide. So, thoughts?
Well, the fact of that, well, if you want to know why Van Damme has a career, real simple. When you have a movie at a budget of 1.5 and you make 50 million, this is why you have a career.
Most definitely, especially for the time.
And I guess the reason why I'm going to say that is as I go deeper into the movie picks and stuff like that, you'll understand why those two numbers, the budget, which is 1.5 million, and what it grossed, why I say this is why Van Damme has a career. And it also just shows you that, we live in an age of the big blockbuster, but as we see, right now the big thing besides the big blockbusters is the cheaply made horror movie. And when I mean cheaply made, I mean budget-wise. You know what I mean? Like Lights Out or Get Out or, the Annabelle movies, like the James Wan movies, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody marvels at these movies because they're I don't want to say cheaply made, but it doesn't take a 30, 40, 50, 100 million to make them, but they make a profit.
A very low investment to make, so no matter what you hit at the box office, it would still make a stronger return.
And people are acting like this is new. You know what I mean? Like, wow, James Wan and Jason Blum. It may be in the horror genre, which is really not new, but this idea of you don't need $100 million to make a hit movie. You got to remember, when you make 1.5 million, and let's just say marketing was added into that. Let's say the whole thing with marketing, pay, all of that was on, and you made 50 million. You don't need $200 million to have a career. So I'll just leave it at that.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, people also tend to forget that this is also, Hollywood is run on a business. It's not run on just ideology and also tryouts. I mean, it's great to be artistic and try a lot of different palettes, but it still has to be within the realm of a respectable budget for what you're trying to get. But needless to say, it was my pick of the week, and like I said, mostly because when we started off the show, I know you had mentioned a Van Damme film. I forget which one it was. I don't know if it was I don't know if it was Double Impact you had brought up, but it made me think. I chose my first pick, obviously, Man of Steel, but coming into it, it still sat in the back of my mind because those were the times when I really was into a lot of movies. And I think as a kid, that kind of really brought me into being a lover of films. And one thing important genre, especially at the time for me growing up, coming up off of ninjas and stuff like that, was the Kung Fu martial arts flicks. And this really was really good for me to go revisit this film because like I said, it was such a big part of my life growing up. Like I mean, watching it, I could tell you exactly so many places that I've watched it at, and it was all the same, and it was always me stuck in front of the TV because it was such a good film for me. And like I said, this came around like in 1988, around nearing the end of the ninja trend, and kind of evolving into just a straight up martial arts karate flick. And plus, because during that time we also had the action films, the Commandos, the Rambos, still going through the time, because those type of action flicks were your blockbusters at the time. You got to remember, Batman 89 was a year out afterwards, and that wasn't a large trend. Remember, Batman 89 came after the death of Superman, quote unquote, and at least Christopher Reeve's version, because the last one kind of was panned by most critics. So it was a great interesting time for where the movie industry was. And going into the Kung Fu flicks and stuff like that, I think this was a great addition around that beginning of that transition from hardcore, like straight up ninjas, like not just kung fu, straight up ninja films and the ninja craze, and finally kind of transitioning into your average martial arts film. And keep in mind, this is around the time that your Die Hard started to pick up. It wasn't the kung fu guy, it was just the beginning of just the tough guy, the everyday guy. So it was just an interesting positioning for this film that even though I selected, but when you really think deep in around the time of 1988, it was a very transitional time for the action movie genre. But the action movie genre had little niche pockets, if you will. And like I said, you had your ninjas, your karate, big trends, and your regular action, blow 'em up, shoot 'em trends. And it was a fine little interesting place where this film came out and actually made itself a success. Going, I know you had some comments.
No, I was just going to say that's so funny because 1988 was the birth of Van Damme and the birth of Bruce Willis as an action star.
Mm-hmm. And I think around that time was when Steven Seagal started to come in.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, probably not just that particular year. 1988 was Bloodsport and Die Hard.
I thought Die Hard was. Oh yeah, Die Hard was 88. Yeah.
So it's just interesting that your pick was 1988.
Right where we left off at. Yeah, how about that?
With 1988, right? We left 1988.
Yeah, right off of episode 2.
Right. So that.
Well, that's a fact. Well, anyway, let's get into the show. Because I know you guys been waiting for the picks and all of that. But basically, in a nutshell, just my thoughts about the film before we just jump into the picks is, again, I like this film a lot. Like I said, it was more than just a regular kung fu flick. It was also trying to tell a story. And even though it was a very thin script, like, it wasn't really much dialogue. It carried narratively by the story in it of itself. But my initial thoughts of the film, just watching it after seeing it from so many years, just outside of the nostalgia and the memories and stuff, it reminded me of, I didn't realize how quick this movie went. like it's really fast at clocking in about 90 minutes. And I think that was 90 minutes if you add in the credits. Like, the movie actually was short and went boom, 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 boom. It was a very tight script. A very tight script. I mean, you might want to ask yourself, yeah, we could have injected a lot of drama, this, that, and the third, because there was room for it. But at the same time, it wasn't even to be a loosely depicted or actually considered, because I don't think people really consider it as a biopic. But it really kind of is a biopic. And they could have really dug into the characters a lot more intensely, but the funny thing about it is it was all expressed in the action. So they divorced themselves of a high dialogue, and I won't say exactly to the detriment. There might have been one moment where I really felt that, but needless to say, they used the action to push the movie all across. And I don't know if it was because maybe Van Damme wasn't the most trained of thespian actors, if you will, because that he was never known for. Maybe when he did the JCVD film lately, a lot of people really commended him on his acting prowess. I'm not sure if you ever been familiar of it, but I may have to really do a review of that, because I've always heard about that film. And a lot of people say he brought a whole lot to the table because it was loosely based off of him. But it was an action film based on Van Damme basically being Van Damme after being Van Damme, which is who he is today, like a wash up, and he just kind of got caught up in overseas in some, I think it was like a robbery. So a lot of people commended him for something that they never really seen him do, like really dig deep and bring a lot of emotion to a character. And you can't say that he didn't bring anything to the table. He brought to the table, but I feel like it was more, obviously he was there more for his physique and his capability as a martial artist and what he could do with the split, obviously. But I feel like he storied a lot of himself in the martial art. And that being said, it just, like I said, watching that film, a old school action film, high on intensity and fighting and all that, and a good story, because it was a good story. I don't care what anyone says, it's a good story. Simple, but a very good story. They didn't feel to need to bring a lot of, it was what it was, and it was honest to itself and to its genre, and it wasn't trying to bring a lot of depth and emotion per se. The actor during heavy dialogue, we do that through the actual story and work on the strengths. And I wonder if it was more working to the strengths of a new Van Damme, a young Van Damme at the time. Your thoughts and about what I've said, and transition into your thoughts about the film, and then we get into the picks.
The movie does not rely on acting. Okay? This was Van Damme's debut movie. I don't know the story of how he got the role, but this is his actual debut, first movie. Clearly, watching the movie, he wasn't an actor. He was there because of his martial artist, doing the split. He was there for the physicality of it. His job was mainly to sell the physicality of it. And the story moves through the physicality. And I completely agree with that. What I do see is, because you brought up Van Damme's new work, and I actually saw the JV. I forgot the title, but it's basically his initials. What you get from that to this is, yes, someone who has grown as an actor. Also, we have an Academy Award winner in Bloodsport.
Oh yeah, I forgot to bring that up, because it was funny when I seen his face pop up, and I was like, yo, I totally forgot Forrest Whitaker was in this.
And Forrest Whitaker is an accomplished actor and an Academy Award winner, The Last King of Scotland.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So, it kind of just shows you that everybody's got to start somewhere.
That's a whole fact.
Everybody's got to start somewhere. So, it's just one of those things where, this movie does not rely on the. This is not a movie where you're going to get some big dramatic scene. Everything is going to move through the action. And I completely agree with you on that.
And any lasting thoughts about the actual film after seeing it, after all these?
Okay, so after the actual film, because it came out in '88, and it's been so long since I watched it, and I did watch it. I actually watched it yesterday.
What was the last time you seen it beforehand, if you don't mind me?
Oh, it's probably been over a decade.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah, it's been that long. Here's the big takeaway that I got, and this is going to sound like an insult, but it's not. How cheesy the movie is.
I didn't know how to express. There is a veil of cheese to it in a charming way, in a very charming way. I might add.
The movie is really cheesy. The dialogue is cheesy. Even some of the action sequences are cheesy. When there's the close-up when Van Damme hits somebody and he does the Bruce Lee slow motion.
That's the Bruce Lee thing. Yep.
And the funny thing is, he does it a few times in the movie, which makes it cheesy.
Not really. It worked every time for me. I don't know. It just came in.
It worked every time for me, because Bruce Lee only does it once in his movie.
Oh, yeah, for Bruce Lee. But for some reason in this film, it got over for me.
In Bruce Lee movies, he does it once, because usually when he kills somebody, he doesn't want to. I counted at least 3 to 4 times Van Damme had that face where they did the slow motion, and he tries to show the emotion in the eyes, and the and he tries it up. And I just found it, I found the movie cheesy. And it just also makes me realize how things have changed, because back then, watching it, it was probably the dopest action I've ever seen. But then I thought to myself, wait a minute. This is where good stunt coordinators come into play, because that movie came out in '88. If I believe 1975 or 76 was Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon. The action sequences in Enter the Dragon, which are well over a decade older, much more fierce. So, like I said, it's not a knock on the movie. I just didn't realize how cheesy Bloodsport is. And I'll let you go now.
All right. Well, I mean, I think I get what you're saying on the level of quote unquote cheese to it, but I don't think it was as cheesy to me, but I did see a thin layer of cheese over it. But I think that thin layer of cheese made it charming, and for me, it was a lot thinner than it was thinner for me than it was for you. But at the same time, I think it brought a certain nostalgic charm to it for me. But to get on into the show, let's get into the picks. Okay. My first pick was The Fighting. Now, I'll be honest with you, I felt like it was well choreographed for the most part. Yeah, after seeing it for after some years, there were maybe like a couple scenes that I was like, all right, like that's a little bit of acting, if you will. But to be quite honest, it holds up. It really holds up for me quite well. And also depicting the several different styles all across the world. And something that for me, and I think it always was there even back in the day for me, Bloodsport was kind of like the first Street Fighter movie, if you ask me. It was really a bunch of guys from all across the world with different types of fighting styles. And they showed you that early from the very beginning into even when you see them depicting and you see them actually having the fight matches. And I thought that was pretty kind of cool. And it also kind of brought more to the story in terms of how serious this Kumite underground fighting thing really was. That people from different continents still come down here and to test their skill against other fighters all across the world. Your thoughts?
So my pick, just to piggyback off you, and it's just no, I'll say that for later. But my pick, which I actually think is
your thoughts on my thoughts. You had no thoughts on the pick?
Well, yeah, I agree. It was cool to see. One of the most interesting things was to see people from different styles, parts of the world coming to this one thing, and imagining the real story of Frank Dukes and those people actually doing that. So I really do. That was something that I did enjoy. It wasn't just like, Karate Kid or something. This was all different people from I guess what you would consider the best of the best, fighters from the world, and coming to this one tournament that they underground that they all know about. And what region brings a certain style? Why the black guy had to be a monkey? That's
I ain't go for that. I didn't want to go there. I wasn't sure how I want to touch on it, but continue.
Black guy had to be a monkey, but we'll get that. But I do agree that was actually interesting, because most tournament shows you see are all from the same place. And to be honest, something that you brought up that I didn't think about. This was probably the first Street Fighter, where they all came from different parts of the world. And I got to admit, I didn't think about that till now. My pick, which I consider to be a stand-up in the movie, Bolo Young.
Mm-hmm.
If people don't know who Bolo Young is, Bolo Young plays the main antagonistic villain. I believe his name was Chow Ring, or I believe, I'm not sure.
Chung Lee. It's Chong Lee.
Right. But Bolo Young. Is this guy got the biggest chest in the world?
yeah, that dude was huge. Bolo was not that huge no more. He dropped a lot of weight. He's real small now.
Well, just so you know, he's right now he's 74, 75 years old. He was a professional bodybuilder and martial artist, which is something interesting because, I remember Bolo Young, and it's funny looking up his age being 75. That means he was well over 40 when he did Bloodsport.
You gotta remember, he was a relic of Bruce Lee. People forget, he fought with Bruce Lee. He's a relic of Bruce Lee.
He was in Enter the Dragon.
Enter the Dragon, that's
And he had that big, gigantic chest then, too. Mm-hmm. But you don't often see a martial artist who was a professional bodybuilder. So to be a big guy as a martial artist, and he was fast.
Yeah.
It was an interesting combination. So just to see that, and I saw, obviously he was brought there for his martial arts skills, not his acting, but I liked the way he sold it in, his physicality. I not to take anything away from Van Damme, but when Bolo Young is on screen, he commands the attention.
Mm-hmm.
And even with Van Damme on screen, he actually does command the attention. Now, I don't know if it's the physicality of how he looks, plus he's got this look in his eyes.
He got a very intimidating face, yeah.
Right, and he knows how to sell it. So I found him to be an amazing presence on the film. And to me, that was the big standout, was Bolo Young.
I mean, I would concur. Bolo Young, I mean, like I said, he's a relic of the Bruce Lee era, and he knows exactly what to do. And I think he played a villain back then, so he just had the physical prowess to cast the proper shade and shadow that they needed every time he needed to be on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
and it's funny that we brought that up, because since Bolo Young has been around 15, 20 years before Van Damme, it's probably why, to be honest, when he's fighting, it doesn't look that cheesy, because he's already had the experience, whereas this is Van Damme's first movie. You know what I mean?
Oh, without question. So this goes into my second pick, the second picks. And for me, I don't care what anyone says, it's the use of montages and soundtrack. I loved it. The montage was excellently and well shot and well executed. Something that the montage that people don't do enough of when people complain about films, like, for me, like, with a film, like, the dude starts off at the beginning not knowing how to fight, and somehow now you're like the last samurai or something. This is when you need to employ a good montage, because a motherfucker like me is going to wonder how the fuck did you become the master in a week, in a whole fucking week. I got issues with shit like that, or in a movie when the two people fall in love, and I feel like y'all just met, right? like wasn't it like Monday when y'all didn't even know who it was, and I swear it's like Thursday evening, and there's love. That's a strong word, and you don't do enough in the film to express that. After enough emotional time had transpired for the payback, if you will, in terms of like this high output of love to actually make sense, or there was a certain type of level of intensity that would actually emote that. If you don't have that there, that it kind of makes it look like a little hard to believe. Like Titanic, that literally happened in a week, but that made sense because the characters kind of told it, for where she was at and where he was at and how they met and the circumstances for them to fall in love with each other. You'd have bought that by the end of the film. You're gonna buy that. Certain films, they can't sell it to you. In this film, however, the use of montage to just transition, even showing how he learned how to fight, they use a great way of montage to show how he met the son. And the son was like a MacGuffin. You never even, past seeing him as a kid, you didn't see him anymore. Then you see the training and doing the split, which was funny because they show him stretching him for the split, but he already did a full split from before that scene. That's something I did notice, because when he was sparring with him and hitting him, he already dropped down into the split when he tried to hit him, and he grabbed it and he raised himself up. He did pretty much the same shit when he was splitting him on the trees. So it was like he already knew how to do that. But that's neither here nor there. It was just a great usage to let you know that he didn't just learn this last week. I felt like there was no point in the movie that made me not believe that he trained for years. And I felt like the usage of that was excellent. Also, the fight to survive shit, the song that they were playing, sometimes the tracks like they would play when you seen him like scrapping and sparring, it kind of, and you show the montage along with it, the words of the way they used to do montages of the 80s, it made, like, Family Guy made little jokes about it. It might be part of the cheese, but to be honest, when well executed, it furthers and even gives more depth to the story. They use a couple montages, even when they was chasing him through the marketplace, you know what I'm saying? Or when he was, after his friend got, like, knocked the fuck out, and he's on the bus, and, you know, the music, you know, like, that they would play, like, even, like, On My Own, that was one of the records that they were playing when he kind of left the hospital, and he just had this whole moment where, and it was like, it was the perfect song. He was on his own. He couldn't get out of his head, Bolo, Chung Lee, stomping his head out, snatching the fucking, his bandana off his head. It was, the way they did the montage through quiet moments, and I wonder if the reason why they used it also was because it was Van Damme's first film, and it was a good way without dialogue. And remember, he has a heavy accent, that he could emote his feelings through let the record be the words, and let the song be the mood. And then all we have to do is just let him know where you're at in the film, and just emote like that. And then through the montage, you kind of tells you and stories out where he's at in small moments, going to him, getting himself emotionally prepared to go take on the final, the final antagonist of the film. And it kind of helps with the build-up to get to that point. Because that's what the film is, basically. Even from a Street Fighter film, it's all these build-ups to finally get to M. Bison and or Akuma. You know what I'm saying? And I think the usage of the montage, which is seldomly used with respect in these days, and this is why I was talking about before, where it's hard to believe certain things. A good use of a montage can take a character from one point to another, whether you need it in the time and emotion for you to actually get to this next point, to where the character is in the story, and the heaviness, we could express it through the montage instead of having to have, like, several different scenes to tell you a whole other story just to get him emotionally, or to get the character from point A in a certain period to point B in another period. No, if you use the montage right, you could also express all the fundamental emotions and kind of story out all the things that's not needed to really give you verbatim, but it's needed because we need to graduate this character and elevate them to a certain level of maturity, whether it's in time of learning how to fight or what have you, or even if it's in a relationship, to show you that, yeah, like, even if it happens within a week in a montage, I could build out and flesh out, like, it wasn't just a bullshit week, though. A lot can happen in a week. And if you do it the right kind of way, you could kind of elevate the characters to now where you need them to be in the next point of the film, so you could carry it on, and you could actually make them, like, if they make a big leap in decisions, the montage kind of helps you realize it wasn't a big leap. You see where they began before the montage, where they ended at, to elevate you to the next decision that they have to make to transition, to get them along through the film. And I don't know about you, but I felt like it was just, even though they had a couple, like 3 of them, I felt like it worked for the film, and I think which adds to its novelty and kind of its specialness, if you will. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the montage, especially in what I consider to be sports movies, and again, this is a sport. It's called Bloodsport.
Bloodsport is in the name.
It is a sport. So whether it be Rocky, or Never Back Down, and Bloodsport, I think that, montages, it's funny with montages because a montage can be used really well, and it can also insult the intelligence of the person.
I like what you said. Say that one more time.
I said a montage can be used really well to tell the story, or it can be used and insult the audience because it's almost like the director not thinking that you're smart enough. Like, for example, last week we discussed Die Hard. What's the scene that we said build the tension? After the big shootout and he says shoot the glass, we don't have to see Bruce Willis run across the glass.
Nah.
So now if they showed him running across in slow motion cutting his feet, I don't know if we really needed to see that. I think that so we don't have to see that. So I think sometimes a montage, it can be used as a filler. You know what I mean?
That too.
But I think, and sometimes you really don't need that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can redirect the nature of the film. So,
like,
but
example,
if you need to, if the character needs certain experiences, you don't want the film to be about the experiences. You want the experience to build the character to the next level for where they need to be. By showing all of that, you might redirect the nature of the film.
Right. So, but in this case, because it is a movie about fighters, and these are supposed to be, I guess, the best of the best, the most elite fighters who are getting to this place. You have to show a montage of Van Damme's training or Frank Duke's training to understand why he's this good. You know, why he's this good, from the splitting to fighting blindfolded to even the scene where he has to, give them food, a cup of tea blindfolded, and when his master tries to hit him, he catches him and he smiles at his wife. You need that. Because, yes, Van Damme has a body and he can do a split. But
also in the montage, that also further develops his relationship with the family, why he would come all the way and, like, basically go AWOL just to honor his Japanese family.
Right. So, and also, like I said, the montage of his training, because you're going to have to want to know why he's this good. Why is he this good? So that I do completely agree that this is the time where a montage is very well used. I will throw in just a little added onto the montage that now this movie's not known for its cinematography. But
there was a shot I loved. That's so funny. That's so funny. I said the same thing. It's not really, I don't want to say cinematography so much, but there was an excellent shot I loved. Go in. I think it's the same shot.
It's the shot where he's got a split.
Mm-hmm.
He's on top of like a balcony, and he's looking over the city.
Yep.
And it's shot from his back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's funny because I wasn't sure if that was a real city or they put that in, because there were times it looked kind of weird. But I gotta admit, when that shot during the montage, I actually was like, wow.
That was a great shot. It was a great shot.
Amazing shot. Like, and you just show it from the back. He's doing the split, and obviously he's shadowed because it's from the back. And then you see the blue water, the boats in the city. And I just thought during that montage, that was an amazing. You know what that reminded me of? Rocky IV. The last shot when he makes it on top of the mountain.
Yeah.
When he's running up the mountain. Like, you just get that one shot where he's running up the mountain and you see the distance and you're like, wow. I just thought it was an amazing shot on the montage. So
I'm going to be surprised if that was inspired, because remember Rocky, what's that, Rocky?
I'm going to be honest with you. Any sports movie that has a montage.
Rocky inspired it. That's a fact. Yeah, say no more.
Because let's be honest, even Bruce Lee movies don't have montages of each other.
Yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact.
So any movie that has a montage and it's especially fighting, that's Rocky.
Yeah, that's a fact.
So you all
it was in Punch Out. It's in Mike Tyson Punch Out. All of that.
So whether it be Bloodsport, Never Back Down, Creed, all of you are Sylvester Stallone's children.
Yeah.
Shout out to Sly on that one.
So your next pick?
It's going to be interesting because my next pick is something that I got under my skin, but I had to laugh on it.
Okay.
The fashion.
Okay.
Van Damme has this one outfit. It is a black leather jacket with the collar pulled up, these like high water pants, and this tank top where the chest part is way too low. And it's when he's looking for him when he meets his master, he's walking through the streets with this one, and I just kept looking at it, going, why is the tank top so low? I was like, dude, the neck part is so low, and then I kept remembering the time that he was in. Like, this was during the 80s, and it was just...
Going into the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, and then also some of his hairstyles.
I mean, people forget he wasn't breaking. People forget he wasn't breaking.
I didn't even know that. So that's,
you didn't know he was out there dancing at the scene where they was.
I didn't know. Well, I mean, there's been rumors that he wasn't a real martial artist. He's really just a dancer.
Nah. People, he did ballet.
Okay, so
yeah, but the thing is with that is he's actually put this videos of him doing it. But yeah, there was a rumor about that in France, but he actually, I think what the discrepancy was did he have, what kind of tournaments were he in? But to be honest, like, I've heard that argument, but that's been like, they found videos, not a whole lot of him as a kid that at least not that I've seen, but I'm well aware of what you're talking about. But if I'm not mistaken, that's been kind of put to bed.
Okay. You know, like I said, it was just the one, but it was just the fashion, like that one outfit.
I mean, well, it's a product of its time, and yes, back in those days, that was
just so. Just the black tank top, and that part was like almost. It was so low. I just remember looking, and then his belt was so high up. I just remember staring at that one outfit and going, "Wow!" But at the same time, I have to remember the time it was. So, which something and again, this is not a negative. This is like when I say cheesy, this is not a negative. It's just something that stood out that I was just like, I got to remember when this was made.
Hey man, you might find a video, old picture of you wearing some shit like that.
Oh no, I have a picture that I put up on my Instagram with my father and grandfather, and God, I have the worst. They could have picked out my asshole.
Yeah, yeah, they really could have picked that joint out.
But that was that. That's my pick.
All right, well, my third pick was, to be quite honest, was Van Damme. I thought Van Damme, though not much of an actor, he loses himself in the fight. I think that's why they might have overused a lot of the slow-mo, because a lot of the story was hidden in how he emoted. Like, one of the best scenes of it, to me, was when they threw the dust at his eye, and he makes that face. Very Bruce Lee. He did a lot of Bruce Lee isms, and I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't have to do it in slow-mo, because anytime we do it, we always do it in slow-mo anyway. But that's the Bruce Lee move. But you could see the worry, the emotion, everything was all lost in the eyes that he couldn't see. Sometimes it got me mad that no one didn't notice that. Y'all don't notice that he can't see shit. But I was like, maybe, but at the same time, maybe they could have said, hey, even though they might not have seen the dust, they probably would have said, maybe he got hit that hard that he can't see shit, and we can't save you unless you say you want to tap out. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. He was very expressive in his fighting sequences, even when hitting the lower brick, getting the thing dusted in his face. But even in some of his dialogue, and I think one of the hardest things to overcome was he has a heavy, I believe it's a French accent, and it may not roll over well for a freshman actor to try to master the language, and because he's actually playing an American. But then when you're trying to do emotional, heavy dialogue driven scenes, your struggle of mastering the language ain't gonna help when you're also trying to emote. At least I'm assuming. So for him to have this working against him, being able to carry the fact that I believe their friendship, with his friendship with Jackson, short time, but they were fighters. They're men. They're fighters. We bond over that shit. You know what I'm saying? The fact that we're one of the very few people that are even here, that shows that we got a common denominator that very few people can admit to. We're cut from the same type of cloth. We're seeking the same type of glory. You feel me? And again, like I said, he also carried a certain level of charm that very few people could have been able to pull off. especially given the fact that he's not his accent is so heavy. But again, like I said, he was, even though we could say a lot about Bolo, this was still Van Damme's film. And make no mistake, Van Damme, his charisma carried him way through further than the actual written dialogue could have.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts?
No, I agree, and I think that this is where a lot of people, and I've heard it when I was younger, didn't understand it. Why some people can become stars and some people don't, and they'll say, I'm sure you've heard this phrase, sometimes the camera just likes certain people.
Yeah.
Like the camera, like, and again, sometimes the camera likes certain people. The camera likes Van Damme.
Mm-hmm.
And not just because he's an attractive guy. Like, the camera likes him, and he does have a charisma that can sell. There's something of, and like I said before, this goes back to my first thing about why does Van Damme have a career. When you have a 1.5 million movie where the star is an unknown actor, I think he's Belgian, heavy accent, maybe French, heavy accent, it's kind of cheesy, but he has charisma, the camera likes him, and you make $50 million. This is why Van Damme has a career. You know, there are a lot of people out there who are accomplished actors who just can't make it. Could be the right role, whatever. Sometimes charisma. It's like both of us love rap music, right?
That's a fact.
And I say, now, are some of the top rappers the best? No. But what have we always said? I call it the it factor, that X factor. And I always use, and I use him as my big example, Young Jeezy. I don't think Young Jeezy's the most lyrical guy. I've never heard a Young Jeezy verse that I had to be like, yo, let me rewind that. It went over my head. But I've always said there's just something about you. It's that it factor. I think Van Damme had it. He had the it factor. He had that little thing that the audience can gravitate to. It's just that little thing. And I think the camera sometimes can catch that thing. So I do completely agree with you on Van Damme. I do agree with that one scene. When the dust is thrown in his eye, I really believe that Bolo took some dust in his eye. Like that wasn't even camera trick. He was like, yo, I really want you to throw it in his eye. Hey, Van Damme, you're probably going to be blinded a little bit. Just go with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, if you told me they really threw something in his eye, and he had to just, you know what? I wouldn't doubt it. Or maybe it was like a doubt or something. Nothing that's going to really hurt him, but it might just affect him a little bit. And I do believe the facial expressions on that particular scene, where he's losing, where he doesn't have sight, I got to admit that you sold me on that. And that goes with the physicality. Van Damme had to use a lot of physicality. He had to act through his body and facial expression. And sometimes that's not easy to do. You know, one of my favorite shows is The Wire. There's a character, Marlo Stansfield. He plays one of the main villains. He speaks, but he's a man of few words. And I always say the actor that plays him, Jamie Hector, is an amazing actor because he has to sell so much of Marlo just through eyes and facial expression. And he does it amazingly. It's almost like he can have all conversation with you without saying a word. And he does it amazingly with his eyes. So through the physicality, I will give Van Damme kudos for that. He sells his character through it, and it's believable. So that's what I have to say on that.
So your next pick?
My final pick, and it is my final pick that I thought was, it's a positive and a negative. So it's kind of going to go in both.
All right, which one are you going to start off with?
You know what? I'm going to start off with the positive, and then when we do the next one, I'll start off with the negative. So the positive for my final pick is his friend Jackson. I actually really liked him. I really liked their friendship. I really liked their friendship. I really liked the actor that played him. He's just, I really did, and I really enjoyed him when he was on screen. You know, and he's the opposite of Van Damme. Van Damme is all cut up. He's just kind of buff. Van Damme is clean cut. He's got the scraggly beard, scraggly hair. Van Damme has got the cool little leather suit on. He's a Harley Davidson dude. You know what I mean?
They were definitely opposites. They were definitely opposites.
Van Damme's fighting is more finesse, technical skill. He was just a brawler. So, but I really did like him. And, you know, there's not really much to elaborate on. I just really liked him.
No, most definitely. I think he was a dope addition towards the cast, and he was another guy that it almost felt like he had more lines than Van Damme, maybe, or just about the same amount. But needless to say, and I wouldn't be surprised if, because I think he was a vet. I don't think that was his first job.
No, I've seen it before.
So without question, he could carry the dialogue, and I think that he just had a certain level of charm and likability that he was able to bring to the character that made you buy into their relationship. He was just one of those big, I guess you would call the lovable oafs. But once you get him, he was actually a good dude. Like, you just had to get past the bullshit. And I totally agree. Good actor. I forget his name. What is his name? Donald Gibb. Yeah, Ray Jackson.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you're positive? You said you had another positive?
Well, that was the positive.
Oh, I mean the negative. Excuse me.
The negative? I don't know how he made it to fight Bolo. I don't know how he made it that far.
Oh, okay. I wasn't even sure. That could be a nitpick, but I feel you.
Yeah, but that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Like, that's what I meant by positive. I guess that'll be my nitpick now. I didn't want to.
I don't know. Was it a standout of it for you? I mean, in terms of the character. That's more of a nitpick. That sounds more like a. That sounds more like a nitpick. But we'll get to that in a sec. Huh?
Yeah, we'll get to that. So.
Yeah, but let me get into my final pick. Pick. Real simple. The villain, Chong Li. I thought Bolo Young was. Again, like, I didn't want to say it right after it was your pick. I wanted to give some breathing moment, but I totally agree. For a guy that barely spoke, he cast a very big shadow all across the film to know that he was the guy that you were going to have to deal with by the end of the film, and he ain't want to play with. He barely said, I think he had only 2 lines about the bricks don't hit back, and
And what a line.
Oh yeah, that's a whole fact, because everybody was impressed off of him, and it showed what kind of villain he was. He was an extremely vain guy. He was another guy that acted through his expression, and like when he didn't have to go knock that nigga off like that or even kill the other guy. But you could tell this was really all about self-gratification and glory. He was a very arrogant dude, almost to a childlike state, because you seen how he smiled like a kid when like an awkward big kid when people clapped for him. He would break your whole face just for the crowd's adoration. That's it. That's all he lived and breathed for. So when everybody gave him attention when he busted the brick down from the bottom, he was like, yeah, all right. Remember, bricks don't hit back. They could feel you. Because remember, they clapped for him. He didn't like that. I don't know if that was the price of, at a price of coincidence, or that was meticulously put there from the clapping there that he got Van Damme, and why he said what he said. The fact that he would say right after the clap for him over doing something spectacular, then busting down the record later and making sure that you guys know that ain't no motherfucker other than Chong Li out here. And he's jumping up and down, and then when he just did that, knocked the dude out without touching him type shit, and he's like, oh, word, really? Like, I don't know if that was meticulously done there, or it might have been at a price of the story, and it's like, oh shit, hey, it worked. Cause I don't know if the director actually I believe his name is Arnold, Newt Arnold. I don't know if that was something that, Newt Arnold. I don't think that was, I'm not sure if he did it on purpose, but it definitely, after the fact, helped to build the character without words, since Bolo Young barely said anything. And I don't know if at the time he even spoke English, because I think that was also one of the reasons why he seldom said anything, because I don't think his English was up to that. But needless to say, for a guy that maintained the threat level throughout the film, and I wanted to add something there too, but I'm not sure if it is a nitpick, but it's part of the conversation of why he also stands out as a guy that maintained threat level. If you really look at the final fight, he was losing.
Yeah.
Like, I watched that shit. I'm like, if you really go by the charts, you lost. But you maintained a threat all throughout it, though. Like, it was an interesting thing, because it looked like if you really watched the fight, you you didn't really have much form other than not being no pussy. like you was still made sure you was the threat. But if this shit went to the cards, to the cards, baby, like even before he kind of got you to, even if you got before the point of where he felt the needed to bust the pill to chuck it in his face, yo, dog, on the charts, you wasn't doing it. But even when he finally had him, the fact that he was feeding off of his prey, like he was playing with his food, because he wanted the adoration of the crowd. It was very consistent, and that was a major pick for me in the film. Your thoughts?
Okay. No. I mean, I said a lot of what I said. The end fight scene, I thought the same thing, but that would be more of a nitpick. The only thing I want to add is, you know how we talked about heavily borrowing from Bruce Lee?
What? Excuse me?
You know how we talked about earlier heavily borrowing from Bruce Lee?
Oh, yes, sir. Down to even a Bruce Lee villain.
That line that you love about the bricks, that's not an original line.
Oh, matter of fact, I think Bruce Lee said something like that. Boards don't hit back.
He says it in Enter the Dragon, where the guy he fights hits the board, and Bruce Lee looks at him and goes, boards don't hit back.
Yeah.
That was an Enter the Dragon, which had Bolo in it. So, you know, it's a great line, but it's not an original line.
That's a whole fact. So, you didn't have any more picks, did you?
No, I have no more picks.
All right, so we're at that part of the show, ladies and gentlemen, where we get to the nitpicks. And just for those that are not familiar with this segment, the nitpicks are where we start getting into that nerd extra peeling back. You know, where people get a little bit too much for the films. This is the place where we can have fun with that. But the thing is, instead of spending all day long on every little bit of thing that we want to just nitpick apart about a film, we just take our major nitpicks, and we're going to set this off with mine. And I'm going to keep it real polite, because I didn't really have too much, because the film kind of went at a real good pace. Kept going and going all the way to the end. And like I said, it was funny that it was just a 90-minute film. But needless to say, one thing that kind of threw me off was, something of a mild nitpick to me, was Van Damme hitting my man in the balls. And the way he did that was a little bit, I was like, you was way too trained. You just felt that was where you needed to go. like I didn't think that was all the way cool. That was a dope scene. Don't get me wrong, it's a memorable scene. But I was like, oh, are we just gonna go there? And the way you did it, though, with the Bruce Lee slow-mo, like you strong hit him in the nads, baby. That was it. You broke bricks with that fist, dog. Imagine that. That's why that nigga passed out. but I don't know. That was something that came to my mind, man. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good nitpick. That really is a good. It's not something I thought about, but it's a good nitpick. So I'm not going to add anything to that. I'll just jump into my nitpick.
Okay.
And I know the kid who played Van Damme as a kid.
Oh, he was a horrible actor.
Not even that.
Whose son got onto the set? Whose son y'all used on the set?
I'll be honest with you. There were moments it made me wonder if this was an American film because it looked like the old Chinese movies where they talk and then they dub a voice over.
Mm-hmm.
There were moments where I literally was like, and I actually rewinded it because there were moments where he's doing his acting, and I was like, is he really speaking?
It could have been bad. I think they call it ADR, like when you add it after the fact, the sound.
So it was just.
But it could have. I see what you're saying.
It was just. It was. That's it. He was just terrible. As a young man, he was just horrible.
Yeah, and he even looked nothing like Van Damme either.
And I don't care about the look. It's just. It was just terrible. It was just. So that was a nitpick for me.
I mean, but you got no additives for me on that part, man. So we could just move right along into the second nitpick. My second nitpick was right after he got the dust. Frank Dukes got the dust chucked in his eyes. Is it me? But after you immediately won, it seemed like your eyes got back to normal. I was like he was blinking. He was like, oh, I'm good. Like you had an eyelash. My man, the expression you had when he threw that in your face, nigga, it looked like you might really need to go to the hospital. Is this permanent? And all of a sudden, when you got him, it was like you blinked a few times, they raised your hand, and all of a sudden you could see the judges, and you was straight. I was like, that was kind of a quick turnaround. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I didn't think about it, but you are absolutely right. He just, somehow, he was good.
It was right at the good moment. You won! Oh, my eyes are coming back too, my nigga. I'm straight.
Yeah.
Oh, man, your next nitpick.
My next nitpick, and I hate to go in this direction, because I really don't want to go racial.
I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, but I'm glad you are, sir.
But I get it that people from all different places of the world, but of all the animals the black guy had to be, he really had to be a monkey.
A full-on monkey. a full fucking on monkey.
Bouncing around.
I'm not even going to get at the big black brother that looked tough and took a kick and sat his ass down real quick. I'm not even going to touch that brother.
I was just about to go there also because that's not the first time I saw that. That is not the first time. There's another fight movie, Never Back Down. And there's another fight movie, I forgot the name, where it's this white guy and the black dude, before they fight, does all this extra stuff, and then the white guy just runs up and knocks him out real quick. That's not the first time I've seen that. And it's really bothering me.
He said it's really bothering me.
Because it's not the first time I've seen that. There's a movie, Never Back Down, where the black dude, he's got dreads.
I'm trying to remember it because I heard of it. I heard of this movie
He's
before.
flipping around. He's doing all this stuff, and then the white dude just runs up and knocks him out. And I saw another movie kind of like that. And now
all from the same year time.
You know, it was kind of like, okay, this is what it is. Like, so it really
It's a nitpick. It's a nitpick.
Yeah, it really bothered me. I was like, damn, he couldn't be a lion.
Like there's all these other African majestic animals. This nigga's chimping the fuck out and hopping up and down. And even when his reactions, it was like, you don't react like that in your house, bro. I can understand if this is a fighting style, but you all hit your head like you couldn't even understand shit.
He couldn't even be a big silverback gorilla.
Yeah. You got this nigga chimping the fuck around. Like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go there for a nitpick, but yeah.
I didn't want to go racial, but I had to.
I mean, you know why I didn't want to touch on it? If I could share some thoughts on that. It's because and I got alarms going off. So yeah, my bad. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Say that last part again.
All right. Hold on a second. All right, little technical difficulties here, but where were we?
You were, I did about my racial, and then you said you didn't want to go there, but you had to add to it.
I really didn't want to go there initially because, one, I mean, the channel, I don't want to get, unless it's called for, and I wasn't sure if it was called for here, if we needed to touch on those type of things, because the next movie we got to review, I struggled with that. Yeah, okay. But we'll get into that. But it's a film, and and I'm older now, because I remember watching it as a kid, and I never felt any kind of way about that. That's the funny thing. That's why I'm like, is it the climate we're in? Is it just because I'm older and I'm noticing what I didn't notice back then? Is this a joke to be funny? Because I know they were trying to pick different type of fighting styles, and I'm almost positive no one felt to go to Africa and say, because there was no capoeira from Brazil, so it wasn't like, I don't know if it was a lack of ignorance on the part of African martial arts and fighting styles and techniques. So they said, hey, I mean, Africa, there's jungles, right? Well, let's just say this dude knows a lot of monkey shit. like I don't know if that was like some dumb shit. And you know what gets me mad? It would bother me if that's actually a fighting style. That's why I didn't want to do too much with it. You see how much you could just be here thinking. I wasn't sure how I wanted to go with it, but I'm glad that you brought it up, because like I said, I wasn't sure. All right, like, looking at this movie, would it really this have been a nitpick to me any other time in my life? It really wouldn't have been at this moment. I'm like, does it stand out? Or is it more because of where we at now? And I'm like, I wasn't sure, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to go there. But I'll be honest with you, it was a little bit of a thing. It was like, for me, like, I was like, because I remember him doing this as a kid. So once I got past the nostalgia, I'm looking at it like, yo, this nigga's really acting like a full-on chimp.
I have something really quick though.
Yeah.
To take a little pressure off of you. Because you said it twice, where, is it the times we're in? No, it's not. No, it has nothing. You know why you didn't notice it before?
I'm listening.
Because children are innocent.
How about that?
That's it. You didn't notice it before because you were young. And this has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. To be honest, if there was no such thing as Black Lives Matter, everything going on, we would still have noticed the monkeys.
You know what? Maybe,
as we got older.
Yeah.
As we got older. So that has nothing to do with the political times of the world. It's just it's like looking at a cartoon, a Disney cartoon, and something now as an adult. You know what? As children, we probably thought the monkey dude was cool.
I'll be honest. I just remember it from when I was a kid. I wouldn't say he was cool. I just remember the guy. Yeah, he just jumping up there and busting up the coconuts, and I was like, okay.
You know why? Because we just associated Africa and monkeys.
Probably.
Not realizing that there's a whole lot of animals there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wanted to do that so you could take the pressure off yourself.
Well, I appreciate you, good brother. So I guess it's my nitpick now.
Yeah. No, it's mine. I was supporting yours because this is my last.
Oh no, that was yours about the racial thing.
Oh, I thought.
Oh! You know what? I said you wanted to jump in. Yeah, you were supposed to say your Joy because mine was after the dust in his eyes.
Yeah, my last nitpick is something I mentioned earlier. How did Jackson make it to the end? Like, everybody has some fighting style.
Oh, okay.
How did he make it to Bolo? I'm sorry. It really bothered me that he made it to Bolo.
Okay, I can feel you on that. Like,
of all the people, the dude who had his hands up kicking you.
But remember, they all start at a very bottom level, so they're all fighting in arrogance to, I guess it was a dice roll.
Yeah, I get it, but still, it just bothers
me. But I feel what you're saying, because I don't think they had like a tier ship or you level up to get to him. It was, because remember, Bolo came in to fight like everybody else, though I was champion. I think it was 2 years. I think he was champion for 2 years. Was it 2 years he was champion?
Yeah, but all I was saying was, in to make it that far, you have to beat a lot of guys. I'm sorry, that wasn't believable that Jackson.
Remember, but he did beat one guy up. Maybe his next fight could have been Bolo.
Yeah, maybe, but I guess maybe.
Or like I said with the montages, remember, you fight who you fight, and if you win, maybe whoever Bolo won against, somehow he was next up. But I do feel where you're coming from. I do feel what you're coming from.
It did bother me. So yeah, your final pick.
My final pick is, I thought it was kind of weird because, and this is why I said they didn't need a lot of story for it, but let's not forget what this was about. This was about honoring Mr. Tanaka. And you never get to see him present the prize to Tanaka and the family. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was, you began with that. I know it was a cool way to end with him bowing to that, but I think they should have had a moment where he met with the father, or if he died, because I knew he was sick, he met with the mother to present the sword to the mother so he could have that. And it cost nothing but 5 minutes to give them that one moment. And I think that would have made this film come full circle, because it started with that. And remember, he said, no more training. He said, yo, you got so much. And I love that moment when he says, but you got so much to teach. Because remember, he said, I didn't want to do this shit no more. I'm done, my son. Yeah. And remember, he said he lost a whole other family prior in the war. And he said, I lost my last son. This was my second chance. I'm done. He's like, nah, I'm here. He said, yo, why am I going to teach you? Who you going to fight with? My son is going. He said, no, but you got so much to learn. Let me honor you. Let me honor him. Mm-hmm. And for us to begin there, I felt like it was most appropriate if it would have ended there. And you could have still had the cool levity at the very moment where he sneaks up on a plane and, you know, he sees Forrest Whitaker and, you know what I mean? I just felt like that's the one thing that I feel like, and I'm older now, and I can honestly say, I think that the film, I can't say it needed it, but it kind of needed it. Your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. No. I mean, I didn't need it, but I think it would have been, now that you mentioned, I think it would have been a nice ending, especially since this was about bringing honor to the family and the master. You know, I didn't really think about it towards the end, but I think that how it ended with him being on a plane, you know, I think it would have been, I think that would have been a better fitting, because it was. He did this whole thing to honor his master, the family. So I think it should have concluded with him with some presentation to the family to say, I did this for us. You know, I accomplished what I was going to do for us. So I do agree that would have been a nice alternate ending if they would have had it.
All right. So that kind of brings us to the end. I'm assuming you have no more nitpicks, correct?
No, I'm good. I'm good with Bloodsport.
All right, man. So that kind of brings us down to the end of it. So just give me your closing thoughts.
Again, it's a classic movie. You know, it's for me, it's a very cheesy movie going back. But I do consider Bloodsport a classic movie in which, you know, launched the career of Van Damme. And let's be honest, there were others that followed. You had Van Damme, you had Steven Seagal, you had Mark DeCostas. Like, you know, there was the birth of these action heroes that were also martial artists. And it was ushering in martial arts a different way. You know, martial arts was always, you know, the Bruce Lee, you know, American Ninja Shokazuki, those guys, but this ushered in a whole different martial artists where essentially the martial artists were all American. Mm-hmm. And they also ushered in action. Now, Bloodsport doesn't have the gun stuff, but all the other ones from Steven Seagal to Van Damme's future movies, they were all martial arts movies, but now you incorporate the American gun, you know, shoot 'em up style. So Bloodsport was the birth. And you know, you have to you have to admire it for what it did. You know, I may look back and laugh at it and say it's cheesy, but I will say in its cheesiness, Bloodsport is a classic movie.
Oh, well, without question.
So that's my final word on it.
All right, well, my final thoughts is, again, man, I mean, You have Van Damme in a classic 80s action film that people forget is in its own is a biopic. And I thought that it holds up after so many years. It may still have a veneer of cheese for me, but I think that veneer of cheese is part of its charm. And
Right.
it's a well storied film for a tight script, a tight shot film, 90 minutes, but it gets you from beginning, middle to end in a very entertaining way. And it was a significant addition to the martial arts genre in action films. And like I said, I do feel like it was kind of like the beginning. Since it also was the beginning of Van Damme, it was the beginning of the American kung fu action martial artist film that extended past the ninja genre now. Because we had karate films before, of course, but it was most of the karate films were really the ninja films. You know, if you get outside of watching the actual legitimate kung fu flicks, because we were watching those back in the day in the United States, but to actually get an American version was the birth of us as Americans breeding our own types of karate flicks, independent of just it being more focused around the ninja lore. And like I said, it was still also part of just the regular action genre as well. And I think it was a classic and a very relevant addition because it spawned off the career of Van Damme. It wasn't Forrest Whitaker's first film, not at all, but it definitely was one of those roads to him getting into that roads he traveled to get him into the films that actually makes his name exactly what it is. And his name ain't no bullshit when it comes to acting. He is one of the greats. And like I said, charming characters, charming film. And like I said, I have fun revisiting this film. Like, I'll be honest with you, I really had a lot of fun revisiting this film.
Mm-hmm.
And it was long overdue. So it's good to do it for work, if you will. So with that being said, man, as always, it's not about what we think on this side. It's really all about what you guys think out there. Did you like the film? Is this your first time with it? Please express your love affair with Bloodsport and the kung fu genre and the action genre of the late 80s, if you will. And let's get this discussion going on down in the comments below. So, would you like to say goodbye, T?
Yeah, to the audience, everyone, until we meet again, until we see the next movie. If you're passionate about movies like I am, just enjoy the movies, man. Enjoy the movies. That's it.
And as always, until the next episode, which I look forward to talking about because this is going to be T's pick of the flick. Yeah, till next time. And as always, like, share, subscribe. See you next time. And as always, till I have a better outro. Chill.